My name is Swami Pharananda, and today's meditation is on the wisdom heart. And it's obviously something we all have, sometimes a little more heart and sometimes a little more wisdom, and we try to bring that together. And it's really just a small journey that we'll take today in the next 45 minutes, looking at beauty and quietude within. And it really, inside of us, is that wellspring of beauty and compassion and insight and tranquility and all those good words that we hear, positive words to instill and use in our life. You know, the words, Vak, V-A-C, is Sanskrit. And we can actually make words very sacred to ourselves. You know, the everyday words, you know, we have a lot of the words that come to us that are very strong words we hear every day. And have you ever noticed it when you, sometimes something is said, or a person will say something to you, or you'll hear something, or even, you know, read the word on paper or on your phones or something, and it strikes you and it hits you. And a lot of times something will hit you, you can feel where it hits you. It'll hit you in the stomach sometimes if it's a very strong or violent word or a negative word that you feel a connotation. And do you feel yourself, you sort of feel yourself close off and close in with that? Well, that's the constrictive type of an idea or thought form. Kriya would talk about thought bombs. You know, they come into our lives, and a lot of times unexpectedly, right? We've all had that. You're having a good day, you know. You come into the office in the morning, walk through the door. Oh, yeah, it's been a good drive into work, or it's, you know, we made it on time, and you come in, and there's Mary Lou, as Kriya would say, and there she's standing there, and hi, you know, and you could feel that's the thought bomb. Boom, my world has just come wow, I'm was feeling good, and now I'm down here. It's because we have opened, we become receptive in life. And it really, it is one of the things we want to keep ourselves open, but we want to do it with wisdom. So when Mary Lou says, hi, it's a day, you know, I had a bad weekend. You know those kind of people, whenever you see them, they never have a good day. They always have a day with a problem in it, or maybe 10 problems. And what do we do in turn? Well, number one, you could sort of feed the fire. Yeah, I had a bad weekend too. You know, do you ever have the tendency then you feel like you got to give them a negative thought for their negative thought? No. Think of the opposite thought. If you're going to say something, one, either don't say anything and just, you know, shake your head or, you know, smile or whatever you want to do. Or think of a positive thing to say. You know, oh, I'm sorry you had a bad weekend. I said, you know, maybe today it's a little bit better. It's bright and sunny. Try to find a counteractive type of thought. Why? Because this is that balancing part in our being. You know, if you feed the fire, it's going to just accelerate. And then what happens? You've started out with this good day, and then by noon you're like, oh my gosh, 5 o'clock is far away. But to feed positivity, and it is a continuing thing, because we are continually bombarded with all kinds of emotions and thoughts, good and bad, you know, or negative and positive. It's once said is, how do we tell something that is good for us? You know, something that is positive in our life. Well, something that is positive expands our consciousness, it expands our awareness, it opens up, you know, like the beautiful flowers. Something that's not good, or it's a more negative quality, will constrict us and make us feel much more closed off, closed in. It's pretty, it's not hard thing to understand. It's a hard thing sometimes, though, to change. It's our attitude in life. We can change our attitude right this very moment. You can change your attitude. We all can. And it's a continuous thing that we do. It's one of the reasons that meditation in our lives, prayer, quiet time, all these time that we give ourselves to bring us through that middle point. Remember the namaste that we do, where we bring the two hands together at the heart level? It's the right hand is the Pingala, it's the masculine principle. Left hand is Ida, the feminine principle, the emotionalities. We bring them together at the heart center. And we bring that try to where we have the balance part. That's why we call it the wisdom heart meditation. Because how many times does our hearts take us in this other direction then, right? Oh, it's a beautiful day and I'm in love and I love my little puppy dog and it's just so happy, and then little puppy dog has a little mess over there, and then the day sort of says, oh no, and then puppy dog has a mess over there, and it's like, oh no, but I still love the puppy dog. Maybe not for the moment, I'm sort of trying to think if I do, but it's always constantly. It's this vacillation in life. And through our quieting our being, what happens when we quiet our being, right? It becomes calm. We become quiet. It's the old story we tell time and time again about the Maharaj walking along with his entourage, has the big, they wear the big turbans, he had a crown jewel, and symbolically, it's the crown chakra in his turban. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful crown jewel. He's walking along, they come on the palace grounds, they have a pond, he's looking in the pond, he looks over and boom, there goes the crown jewel. Oh, there's, of course, an uprising, emotionality stirred up. He has all his people in this pool, in this pond, stirring up the water. Look for everybody's looking for the jewel, and there's water everywhere. Everybody's totally soaked. They still can't find the jewel. And here comes along a little holy man, and he's walking by, and the Maharaj says, please, sir, can you please help me find my crown jewel? It's so important. And, the holy man is looking at all these crazy people, as we have in life, all thrashing around in the water. And he says, yes, I can help you. He said, okay, please. He says, number one, he says, everybody out of the water. Everybody comes out of the water. He said, close your eyes for a moment. Everybody, take a breath, inhale and exhale. Now, these are good things to remember in our own life when our emotionality starts going a little bit crazy here. The holy man goes, looks into the pond, stares in it for a minute. The waters now have calmed, right? The ripples in the water have all calmed. Plucks the jewel right out of the bottom of this very still pond and presents it to the Maharaj. It's in the stillness that we see our true selves, the nature of being. Otherwise, there's way too much ranting and raving going on. But what does that take? I mean, it's really easy, right, to be very quiet and still when you're, on the L train and there's lots of people all around, or you're trying to drive really on the uncrowded streets of Chicago that are very quiet, and, everybody drives very well here, right? So focusing, calming, balancing. It's a continuous, repetitive pattern that is one way to instill this calmness, to really see what is truly right for us. In the wisdom heart, it is where the mind and the heart become balanced. And it really comes from the quietude of an undistracted mind. And you say, oh, yes. Do you know the people that really cannot stay quiet for a moment? You know, they're constantly. And they become I know when I sit next to somebody and they're going like this and going up and down and pulling this and, you know, talking to this person, pulling their phone out every 3 minutes, you know. Oh, wait a minute, not every 3 minutes. Every 30 seconds, I'm sorry about that. Very distracting. They're distracted, and how does that affect you, right? Now you're sort of like distracted. So you're trying to keep nice and, you know, trying to focus or do whatever, and it becomes a real challenge. So in these times, in these days, and in the city of Chicago, as Kriyananda always says, boy, you can really work off a lot of karma because there's a lot of people and instances in here. Quietness. For those of you that are in the country and that have the peace and quiet, or in your own home, setting up a quiet place in your life. If you wake up in the morning, perhaps it's that time in the morning, taking a few minutes. And what do you want to do? It doesn't have to be elaborate procedures. It can be as simple or as elaborate as you want, you know, as much time as you have. The idea is in the consistency of what you do. The mind is a monkey. It's Hanuman. You know, Hanuman jumps around, the mind jumps around. And what do we do with a monkey? We train our little pets. We train the monkey. We train our mind. If you can find a place and time in your day, just for a few minutes, it doesn't have to be a lot, 5 minutes. Quiet the mind, and let's just sit here for a moment. Let's just, if you have 2 feet on the floor, or if you're sitting on the floor, just straightening up the spine. Focusing the mind, closing the eyes, focusing the mind on the sun center, the spot up in our forehead, above the root of the nose. And taking an inhalation and an exhalation. Good. And again, taking an inhalation, exhalation. Begin to just gently focus on the breath, letting go. If any thoughts come through your mind, just gently let them go. The thoughts are the mind is going to mind, but we're going to go back to the breath. You could use a neti, gently pushing the thoughts out and coming back to the breath, or you can just sit there and visualize a sun at that sun center, or a star, the North Star people will use, or an object of beauty, something beautiful, and just focus as you're inhaling and exhaling. Feel the mind and body releasing and letting go. Good. Very good. And if you can do this as many times as you want during the day, for a few moments, not when you're driving, okay, there's certain times, when you don't want to do it, but any other time, maybe when you get up in the morning. And you'll sometimes find you're actually sitting like this quietly for quite a long time, and you don't even know it. Or perhaps you have lunch at work, okay? Hopefully you get a lunch somewhere. Take a few minutes at lunch. Just take a couple minutes of quiet time. Even if you have to face a wall or something. You can do it as you're, with your eyes open if you do a meditation or walk. It's a very nice time of year to start walking. Just take a walk and focus on the breath. There's actually different type of meditations, walking meditations, that are very, very mindful. The Buddhists use them quite a bit. And it's actually where you're putting your heel to toe, heel to toe as you're walking. And it really, I put my right foot down, then I put my left foot down, then I put my right foot down. If you have a backyard or a place that's acceptable, even in your home, you can do a walking meditation around I've done it around my living room. You can do it barefoot. And a lot of times if you can do it barefoot, you can really feel, you get that connection with the earth plane there. And it's very calming. So that's really, it's one of the things to bring that quietness to this wisdom heart, to have our hearts calm. Some people will say, well, we were talking about that constriction, when things constrict us. And, there are times in our life where our hearts can feel very constricted for many reasons, many, many reasons. And it's we feel we may never remember when they talk about broken hearts or hearts that have been hurt or hearts that have been scarred. Probably during our lives we've all had some aspect of this. Well, the idea is people then become afraid. And afraid is a Saturn. It's very Saturnian. It's a fear factor, something that we want to feel that pain. And pain, it's actually a reality of life, whether it's physical, mental, emotional. Some people have more than others. But the idea of trying to heal the heart, we heal our hearts so that we can love, because life is loving. It really is. But with wisdom, people say, well, I'm not going to open my heart again. Boy, boom, I'm just going to get it right in between there again. And, I try and I keep getting boom. Well, the heart is a muscle, okay? And the heart has to work. And we work that muscle. And perhaps if your heart is really very tender and hurting now, maybe the way to work that muscle is in a gentle, different way. There's lots of ways we can begin to open our hearts. Even those of us that feel our hearts are full and very loving, there's always additional ways that we can do that. Why? Well, when you open your heart, you begin to have also greater awareness or greater upliftment. It uplifts our souls. That's really what we try to do. We have lights. We have flames. We have the Jyoti light, which is the sacred flame. We have lights on either side here. They're lights, and lights are what guide us. And we can be guided by the heart, but we also need to be guided by the light, which is the wisdom light. If we can use these two, we will learn to love wisely. And that's, to learning to love wisely, I think, it's more of how do I love that's really the true nature of love. And there's a story I know I've told a number of times. Shelley G., Kriyananda's guru, had this student that came in and said, Shelley G., Master, I want to learn how to love. I just, I can't love. I love and my heart hurts and I really want to learn how to love. And Shelley G., Shelley was very, he drew himself up. He took a look, closed his eyes, and he said, just love. Like Yogananda had talked about and taught. Just love. And the student said, well, I can't do it. I can't just love. Give me a special technique. Everybody always wants the big mystical technique that's a real special. And many of these techniques are very simple. But a lot of them require some little discipline in it. Like our meditation, doing a few minutes, every day. Sort of that type of a thing. And Shelley G. said, love, just love. And the person again said, I don't even know how to do this. I'm going to do it wrong. We're all afraid we're going to do the things wrong. Especially, I think we get even more these days because of our computers, and our phones. Oh my goodness, if I press the wrong button, it's going to erase everything. It's going to erase my life. Well, Shelley G. just said again, just love. And what he may have been saying is, if you don't make that effort, if you don't exercise that muscle, it's not gonna work. It will become atrophied. We know that word, right? Our minds can become atrophied. If we don't walk enough, we become, you lose muscle tissue. Okay, we need to work the muscle tissue in our hearts. How many of you run or do a lot of exercise and we're working our muscles and building up, get the legs going, we're trying to get air into our lungs, air into our heart, our body to get it. Well, yes, we also emotionally can work and help strengthen ourselves and open this. Because as you work the heart muscle, it begins to open. It is like a rose or a beautiful flower. You ever see those time-lapse photographies and the flowers open and they're so beautiful? Well, that's your heart opening. If you can do a good it's a beautiful meditation on just something like that, if you close your eyes and you're watching your breath, just watching that, and it will be something that can be represented. You can even visualize it at your heart area. That's another area that you can actually physically work on. Now, there is a very gentle technique to open up the heart area, and it is actually tapping on that area. But when we're doing this now, we have to all listen very closely, because you're going to have to listen for the heart here. Okay, so if what we're going to do is you take your first two fingers on your right hand, and you sit up tall, and you're going to take them, and your heart is basically in the middle of your chest by your sternum, and you're just gently going to close your eyes, and you're going to tap, 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 hold, and again, just tap, 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 hold, and again, tap, tap, tap. And just do this for a moment or two on your own. Feeling that heart opening up. Watching the breath. And this is also a very good technique to do during the day or in your quiet time. And it reminds the heart. It's almost like as if the heart, we sometimes think a heart has a memory to it. We know where the real memory is. It's up in here. But the heart almost has its own memory in times. And it's ways that we end up, even by doing just acts of kindness. We hear this word a lot these days, acts of kindness. I think, in fact, there was like an act of kindness week or day or something. It just came up the other day, and it was, I go to a, health club, where we all go and work out, a lot of us, a little bit. And they had an act of kindness day, and everybody would if somebody did something for them, they'd put it on a board. So it was interesting to see what people were like thanking people for, but, and I know people say there's a lot of holidays we have and a lot of days of, for every this and that, but a lot of these days are times that they bring us to that point to remember to do these things. I mean, we would forget sometimes to do things, right? I mean, if you didn't have, Valentine's Day, you might forget to just particularly observe something like that. I mean, a lot of these, they say, oh, yes, it's the Western world, we have a day for everything. Well, yeah, there's 365 days in the calendar, so you can probably figure out something. I'm sure there's something for every one of those days. But in a way, it is a meditation unto itself, because every time you hit one of those days, it brings up another part of the consciousness. It's almost like the wheels on a horoscope, right? The different houses on a horoscope. It all goes around, and you can almost place things. You can place things in every one of those houses. That is our world. There is also things in our world that help bring us together more, help bring our consciousness and our lives together. Did you ever feel like your life sometimes is like out of control? No, right? You never had that problem, right? No. None of us have never had that problem. You feel like you're like on a roller coaster, you know, whoa, I'm not sure what's going to be down, you know. I would like to steer this roller coaster up. I'm not sure about this here. There's ways in our life that we can bring things together. And a good symbol of that, one of the symbols, if I can get this out of my, is the mala, okay? And we talk about malas, rosaries, you know, are used. Mala is basically has 108 beads in it. You know, when you buy a mala, always make sure you count. Make sure that somebody didn't have a bad day and give you 107 with it. And a mala, actually the 108, there's like a lot of different ideas. 108 is a very mystical number. And going really back to ancient Vedic times in their culture, the mathematicians knew that 108 was the number of existence. And in yoga tradition, there's 108 Upanishads, 108 sacred sites throughout India, 108 marma points, for those of you that are into Ayurvedic. And there's actually 108 gopis that dance with Krishna. So there's there's also 108 lines of energy that converge to form the heart chakra. Okay. And today, that's why the malas sit about in the area of the heart chakra, depending on how long and your mala is. And so what people use the malas for is they not only use them for, like a sacred object or, wearing it. The more older the malas are, a lot of old malas are really very highly wanted because there's a lot of energy that people have used in their traditions. And what one uses a mala is for counting, okay? And sometimes you see there'll be like little markers. People have little markers and they count in their malas. But what you're doing is you take the mala and you're really holding it between your thumb and your middle finger here. And that's how you're actually counting as you say your prayers or your japa, your mantras. You can do it. And you go around the mala. Okay, now if you see, there's actually a tassel. Sometimes there's a tassel. In Buddhistic tradition, there's extra beads put at the bottom, but it always looks like this. And in what they're saying, it's Mount Meru. And Mount Meru is a very holy mountain in the Indian culture. It's a mystical mountain. And when you do your malas, counting your beads, you go around, and when you come to your Mount Meru, you start back around the other way. Okay, so you can go back and forth with it. And it is one way that, it helps some people. It also puts vibration into an object that you have, that's yours. And people have all kinds of they make them out of different precious stones, different woods, different beads. This is a sandalwood mala. It's for friendship. It's for... it has a very warmth to it, If you ever do buy malas or purchase them, it's really hard to buy them online because we don't have a lot of mala shops in Chicago. Maybe somebody can start one over here for us. And it's the best way is to feel it, just take it in your hand and feel how it is. If you use different stones for your malas, some of different stones, of course, have different energy vibrations. So, if you want, like rose quartz is for the heart, that would. But they're also cold, so when you're holding them, The wood ones, the bead ones, are warm. The stone ones will be cold. So it's up to you, and it's something interesting to do. So now we see when people are wearing malas, sometimes they use it just for costume. A lot of times it's because they're actually using them, and they are sacred, so you keep them in a sacred place, or you keep them, somewhere inside. A lot of times you'll see, particularly around the temple, people will wear the malas inside of their clothes with it. It puts it close to the body. That's what you're trying to do, So there are different malas you will see. With some of them have different numbers to them, and that's a whole other story with that. But the most basic ones are 108 with it. So what we do is that the malas are something that brings our beings. It's one of the ways we can have our beings come together more, We try to find things in our life that connect the dots, right? Connect the mala beads, okay? If you can find something that makes sense in your life in this crazy world, which a lot of stuff often doesn't these days, it's to find, and you really need to look in yourself. You're not going to find that, believe me, on the outside. It'll just confuse you even more, Good to be wise and at least take a look at things. But then come in, and when you develop the heart more and open the heart more, it also, in a way, will help you with it can help you with your intuition, in a way. Again, using wisdom. So it's, I wish I could say everything was very easy in life, But as they say, we're on a spiritual journey. And for those of you, everybody's taken vacations, trips, even sometimes it's a trip to go to work in the morning. It's a journey. And you all hear the thing, it's not the end of the journey, it's the steps in the journey. That really is what makes our life. Coming back to the first thing I was talking about is attitude and developing greater awareness in our lives. If you're in your journey and you're and you got Mary Lou again, it's gonna be a bad day. I can tell it's already a bad day. Oh boy, Mary Lou is on a really hard journey there. And really, if you look at it, I know it's, there's not all times of happiness and joy. I mean, even, when the Dalai Lama talks about things, he's very fully aware of the pain in the world. There is pain, and there is not all times when we're going to be happy and just very perky and, everything is all, because it fluctuates. In your body fluctuates. You take your blood pressure, it's this one day, and then the next, it's like this. Everything fluctuates. Life is a constant state of change. If it's not, you're probably dead, okay? Then we know, then that's done. At least the body for that. But life is a constant change. Do you think the same things now as when you were 8 years old? Maybe a couple. Probably not most of them. I mean, I was taught that if you thought you would never change one thing in your life, I was taught that, you really do want to have at least a couple things you'd like to have changed in your life to make it a better life or a wiser life, or things that you've learned from so you don't do the same mistakes again. When they say you reincarnate, what are most of these people doing when what are we doing here? It's because we haven't learned what we were supposed to learn. How many times do we want to do this? Oh my gosh. Really. I get, do you ever have one of those habits that you keep saying, next time I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this. I don't know. We all have the quirky things. I'm trying to think. I have a whole list of them. I can't think of one right now, but there is a whole list of quirky things that I do, and I go, I'm not going to do that next time. I'm going to close that door when I leave. I'm not going to forget it. I'm going to close the door. And here I come in, and there's the door open again. I guess I didn't do it again. The idea is try. That's all that it is. One of the greatest lessons that my guru taught me, but that is a very thing that you hear this, you've heard this beyond just here, is when you fall down, stand up one more time. I think that's one of the greatest lessons on the spiritual path. One more time. Just one more time. Take one more step. Because if you don't, no one will. No one can take that step for you. You know. If you're fortunate, you may have people giving you a lot of things, you know, so that your life is easy. If your karmic patterning is that, where, you know, you have a lot of that. But it's still taking one more step. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much you have, how much you don't have. It doesn't matter if you're sick or well or rich or poor or tall or short or, you know. It doesn't matter. One more step, you know. I always like it because it's like with the lotto. You can't win if you don't buy a ticket. It's like life. If you don't take that extra step, you know, maybe you're lucky and maybe your fairy godmother or father will come down and, you know, but, you know, we also think of that. How many people have won the lottery and are poor again? It's always an amazing thing to me. You get all that money and then they turn poor again. And you know why is that? There's the namaste has sort of gone over out of their lives, you know. It's they got pushed to one side so quickly. And how many times have we all done that? You know, you become sort of overwhelmed with things, you know. And yes, we have extreme joy and we can have extreme pain in our lives, yes. But the idea is to take that back and forth until that pendulum quietly quiets down. And we can pick up the crown jewel out of the pond and place it back on our sun center. If we couldn't ask the musicians to play just a little bit of some nice quiet music, the Krishna Govinda mantra, which Swamiji had talked about in the beginning, is that idea of Krishna, compassion, opening up in our lives. So as we hear it, if you'd like to, you can gently chant the mantra or just sit quietly for a couple minutes at the heart center, allowing yourself to just sit quietly and go over what perhaps you heard in the last minutes. you be blessed, and all those around you be blessed. May your hearts open. May you be healed. May you bring joy into your life and into others' life as you continue on your spiritual path. Thank you for joining us. Namaste.